6 years 60 Minutes has been on the air, we've met a number of very special people. Willie Royka, the saintly junk man. The Marquesa Saint Innocent, who slept with a boa constrictor. Mrs. Brown, who had long talks with Beethoven. Ludwig von Beethoven. Emilio Pucci, who puts clothes on women. And Federico Fellini, who takes them off. And the list goes on and on. Well, tonight, we've got another. His name is John Maher. He runs a center for misfits that he's plunked down right in the heart of San Francisco's smartest neighborhood. It's called the Delancey Street Foundation. It takes its name from New York's Lower East Side. And if conservatives complain that liberal judges and social workers are too soft on criminals, and liberals complain that it's the 19th century approach to crime and punishment that has created such an enormous criminal population, Maher has a third approach to criminal reform. Criminals who have decided to heal each other, many of them drug addicts.
Drug addicts are not nice guys, it's a myth. Poor people and minorities and drug addicts are wonderful, sensitive human beings. No. Problem is that X amount of it is their fault because they've let it happen to them, and a tremendous amount of it is society's fault. And we got to separate those two problems. So we come in here, and what we have here is a sane asylum. See, years ago, when only a few people were crazy, we used to have insane asylums. We put all the few insane people in there to play house. Now, when it seems like everybody is crazy, what we had to do is start a sane asylum for ourselves. We start a little sane asylum, then we could get a few of us sane people together, and for a couple of years deal with each other sanely.
The sane asylum is not stuck back in the mean streets of some inner city ghetto. It sits in two mansions in Pacific Heights, one of San Francisco's smartest residential areas. One mansion, the former Soviet consulate, which they own. The other, the ex-Egyptian consulate, they merely rent.
I just went to the Egyptians and said, you want to rent me the place? And they're kind of crazy. I offered them $1,500. They told me they wouldn't take less than $1,000. So we made a deal right away. And I moved my people in.
Sunday afternoon in Pacific Heights. And some friends of Delancey Street, Cal Jader and Mongo Santa Maria, come to entertain. Most of the 250 men and women residents are ex-convicts or ex-addicts or both. They earn their keep, pay for their room and board by going out each day to a job assigned to them at one of the 5 businesses run by the Delancey Street Foundation. They live in dormitory-style rooms in an environment free of dope and violence. A strange one, perhaps, for John Maher, brought up in both. Himself an addict, a pusher, and a thief. Now, by his own admission, a great social reformer. It's really one of those American success stories. It started with $1,000 borrowed from a loan shark, and today they run 5 businesses. All make money. 90% of their income comes from these enterprises, the rest from assorted grants. They receive no government money. They've been granted a credit union so that individuals might one day break loose from the foundation and make it on their own in business without going to a loan shark. They have a garage and auto repair business which services cars, including 30 of their own, and they repair antique cars. The men must go to automotive school 3 nights a week until they become fully qualified. They run a flower and plant nursery business. Ex-convicts, they say, have a knack for growing things. Anyway, these people seem to, and their nursery flourishes. They own a lucrative moving business, a construction and maintenance business, decorating and renovating old houses. Their own properties are their finest advertisement. Their best-known business in San Francisco is their restaurant. It's recognized by the Restaurant Workers Union as a training school. It's become popular among San Francisco's chic, artsy-craftsy set, and for good reason. Their prices are low, and the food is excellent. A place where the soup does not come out of a can. The help, on the other hand, is a different story.
What is something alive? Like, is this alive here?
Delancey Street runs its own accredited high school. 60 of the residents go out to school, to college, to trade schools, part-time and full-time.
And almost all the things we build and make with machines.
John Maher occasionally guest lectures. He's no Mr. Chips.
One way of looking at life, wake him up or throw him the out. Stay up, Buster. When I talk, you jump or you get moving. You laughing. Guess what? I'll send you home to your mama so fast, you won't believe it.
When they come to Delancey Street, the dropouts, the muggers, the addicts, they all live under rules almost as strict as prison rules. But unlike prison, the worst form of punishment is expulsion.
They come in, they got to kick their habit cold. Why? Because people got to understand. Society is all screwed up. We got to change it. We're going to have to knock some bums out of the way. But before we do that, we're going to have to understand that we ain't nice guys either. Social victims are generally pretty dangerous, nasty characters because we're pretty twisted. We got to untwist ourselves somehow so we're human beings instead of animals. So the first, no violence and no chemicals, no drinking, no pot, none of that garbage. And one of the things guys like us got to break is you're caught in a bind between right-wing nuts who want to beat everybody on the head and poor, weak-kneed, bleeding heart, vicarious thrill, radical chic creepos who want to kiss your backside until you're almost a schizo. So that a lot of guys who comprehend this, what they want to do is to somehow get in a position where, yeah, their problems and their relationship to society and its oppressive measures can be understood, but at the same time, they can have take some personal responsibility for their own change. That's the only way it works.
Well, how does a man that you take in one of these houses, right out of prison or to avoid prison, how does he change? How does he become a different man once he's been here a while?
Well, simple. If you go to a place, and it's craziness. If you go to a big house where there's 2,000 people, 500 of whom are totally out of their mind and are psychopaths who belong in a mental institution, where there is a daily race riot between little Polish guys who think they're Nazis and Texans who think they're Africans, who keep grappling with each other all day long while being encouraged by the administration to do this, well, then after a while, what happens is you get a little crazy. You start walking around with your little knife, looking everywhere. When you come to Delancey Street, you have dinner. People yell at you, so you should go to school. There's ladies. You could talk to ladies instead of having only drag queens on the next tier. You see civilized human beings, and as a consequence, you get normal results from a normal environment. You get abnormal results from abnormal environments. It's not difficult for me to understand that if you put a dog in a cage and you kick it once a day, at the end of 5 years, if you say, okay, I hope you learn your lesson. Now come on out. The first thing he does, he bites you on your knee.
Morning, everybody. Morning. How's everybody feel this morning?
The place is a combination of the new and much abused ethic of love and the old Dale Carnegie idea of act enthusiastic and you'll be enthusiastic. Delancey Street believes firmly in the power of positive thinking. Wandering through the Delancey Street houses, you wonder, maybe these villains that Maher is talking about are the cream of the crop, that these are people who have simply slipped from the path and would find their way back without anyone's help.
No, get the scum of the universe here. I mean, these people don't come here because they're nice guys want to be cured. If they could think like that, they'd never been in the trouble they're in. They come here to duck the law. They come here because they're tired. They come here for God knows what reason. Then they get the message.
Today, is everybody turn to your right and shake a hand, eh? Hey.
I've always relied on the military or the prison system supported me. I've been on welfare. I've been on unemployment. I just, always run away from responsibility. And here you have to reach out for responsibility. The atmosphere here is that, everybody works. Everybody takes on responsibility.
Well, I came not by choice. I was using drugs since I was 13. I got into shooting heroin when I was about 16. Used heroin for almost a year and was getting thrown in juvenile home an awful lot, practically every weekend. And I got an alternative from the judge. Either you go to Delancey Street or you go to a youth home. So I said, I'll go to Delancey Street. I knew after being here for a year, I couldn't go back into doing the same things I was doing before. It would just be too hard. So I knew I had to do one thing, and that was go forward. I'm going to college now and trying to do something with my life.
It would be fair to say that Delancey Street was not greeted with cheers and welcome wagons by the people of Pacific Heights.
No, they decided to fight, and that fight goes on. The people opposed to John Maher and his house are trying to get rid of him through the existing bylaws in Pacific Heights. Bylaws filled with tangled variances, easements, all the stuff that lawyers get rich on. But simply, it's this.
Two Delancey Street houses are zoned single-family dwellings. A difficult phrase to define legally until a few months ago when the court stated that it meant any number of related people, but no more than 5 unrelated people living under the same roof. The resistance to the foundation is based on this, even though Pacific Heights is littered with buildings that have been converted to apartment blocks and hotels through special variances and appeals. The neighbors who want to see the last of Delancey Street are not a lynch mob, not a bunch of hot-breath vigilantes. They're too intelligent for that. They work quietly behind lace curtains and shuttered windows, relying on the laws and the lawmakers they elected and appointed to work for them.
The leader of the fight against Delancey Street lives here, across the road and a few houses up the block, number 3060 Pacific. His name is Peter Fay. Mr. Fay, after first agreeing to come before our cameras, then changed his mind. He wouldn't. He did talk to us off the record, but under those rules, we can't repeat what he said, except to say that Mr. Fay is a very angry man.
Not all of the neighbors are angry. Those who want to keep them in Pacific Heights are just as powerful, just as rich. Their next-door neighbor, but one, is Mrs. Georgina Callan. She doesn't think Delancey Street lowers the tone of the neighborhood.
Do you ever see anything there that offends you?
No, never.
Noise bother you?
No, the noise doesn't bother me at all.
But what is the opposition based on? Why do people want to get them out?
Well, the zoning, of course, is what comes up most often. I also think that the neighbors find it difficult to accept blacks and Latinos in the neighborhood. I think this has been another thing that very few people have said, but I think this is a great objection.
Do you think that they'll win, that they'll be chucked out of here?
I don't want to see them go. I'd like to see them stay forever. But my only concern is for them. It's not for anyone else.
Sheriff, what's the attitude of you, yourself, and your department to a place like Delancey Street?
Well, it's very positive. I think it's a really great organization. It's doing good things.
Richard Hongisto, sheriff of San Francisco, does not want to see Delancey Street leave the neighborhood.
Do you think they're going to stay, or do you think the anti-neighbors are going to win?
Well, it's an interesting struggle because on one hand, in the case of John Maher, you see a man of virtue and noble purpose and great genius, but with very little else, pitted in this kind of struggle against people of lesser purpose and probably lesser intelligence, but with a great deal of raw power at their disposal. If his cunning can match their raw power, I really couldn't say. But I'm watching it with a lot of interest. I hope he wins.
What happens if the bureaucrats, the city ordinances, the angry neighbors win and throw you out of these two buildings?
They can't win. They don't understand this. They could throw us out of this building. We get pup tents, and I go to Golden Gate Park. And they'll throw me out of Golden Gate Park. Then I'll come back here and rent the building down a block. There's no reason for all dope fiend centers, veteran centers, old folks centers to be in slums so that the muggers can come out and get the old folks and the junk dealers can deal for the junkies easier. What has to be is that the whole spectrum of the community has to absorb its part of the problems.
Every day, more of the desperate turn up at Delancey Street's front door. This teenager wandered in one morning, not an ex-convict or an ex-addict, just a young, troubled girl looking perhaps for a sympathetic voice and some discipline in her life. She wants to work.
And are you also aware of the fact that we have commitments that you have to come up to?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Do you think you have any problem in that?
No, I've worked.
Well, we gotta work. Ain't nobody gonna give us nothing for nothing. They'll give us a welfare bribe for nothing until we become so helpless that we're busy scheming for a $5 raise instead of building a business.
But what you're saying is what Richard Nixon says. He talks about the work ethic, that it was hard work and sacrifice that made this country great.
Eddie, who else said it? Mao Zedong said it. Lenin said it. Tom Paine said it. Ben Franklin said it. Get off your ass and work for a living, because that's the only way we're going to get productive enough to get the animals, the bureaucrats, the dingbats, the big politicians, and the corrupt cops off our goddamn back. You don't get nothing without some work in this world. It's that simple. And they got us tricked into this notion that first you're creative. It's kind of James Joyce's trivia is an art form idea. And then you're productive. No, they got it backwards. First you're productive. You could draw a horse, then you could be Picasso and throw dabs around. You couldn't draw a horse. We don't want to see your dabs. You could use a saw and be a carpenter, then you could make nice mobiles. If you couldn't use a saw, you just kind of do that, you should go back to Greenwich Village, get a cup of coffee, go down to Village Gate once in a while, play house. You got to work for a living in this world. No problem.
Do you think that society has been too soft, that we've coddled criminals too much?
No, society's been too coddling of the President of the United States, of the mafia, of the corrupt unions, and of the big corporations. Society ain't never coddled no Puerto Ricans, no black people, or no Appalachian whites. We got to get that one straight. Problem is this. Criminals are not coddled who are poor criminals. Rich criminals are coddled, like General Electric just got fined $3,000 for fucking with the electoral process. That's treason. They should be shot. That's coddling criminals. Letting slumlords get 6 years to appeal their Harlem tenements is coddling criminals. Letting bum teamsters shoot farm workers is coddling criminals. And we ought to stop coddling them goddamn criminals, and we ought to start helping the poor people.
John, why are you doing it? What's in it for you?
Well, when you are an absolute incompetent with no education, then you could either be two things. You could be a bum, or you could be a great social leader. I failed as a bum, so I have really no options. I got to be a great social leader, or forget it.
Last week, after the umpteenth hearing, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors chose to compromise rather than fight Delancey Street. They formed a blue ribbon committee that will guarantee Delancey Street premises in Pacific Heights or a comparable part of the Bay Area. The city will keep its precious zoning laws. Delancey Street and John Maher have a future.